knows, because Donald Trump says that all of his foreign policy, it's all top secret. He's not going to tell anyone what his foreign policy is going to be.
Also, one of the Harris's statements was terrible.
They're continuing the conflict and not looking for an end goal because it's politically advantageous to stay in power.
I'm ready.
Yeah, go ahead and just like lay out whatever you want to talk about, and we can go from there.
First, I want to talk about the Iran-Israel conflict.
All right, but like in regards to what just happened,
I think the Biden-Harris administration management and Iran and Israel conflict was very bad. They never threatened Iran to don't attack Israel. We will bomb your nuke factories or your oil resources. They never said that. Kamala Harris just said don't. So that's not a good appointment for Iranian's regime. And Iranian's regime just attacked Israel and they say, we are going to destroy Israel. So I think the Democratic Party became anti-Semitic since 2019. If you look into the 115th Congress, you might not see any anti-Semitic congressmen or congresswomen. But now, there are more than 10. There are more than 10 congressmen, congresswomen, which they are anti-Semitic, and even Bernie Sanders turned into an anti-Israel politician. So that's a problem with the Democratic Party. And that's why I think now the Democratic Party should do a rebuild for itself.
All right.
Because those people, they shouldn't, the Democratic Party shouldn't let those people in. And that's a major problem. Like,
so I
Cortez,
don't, I don't disagree that like we shouldn't allow anti-Semitic people into the party, which is why there's been such a big rejection of people that are part of like the hyper progressive, hyper lefty. Like if you look, I think it was Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush.
Yeah, Jamal Bowman.
Yeah, they both got ousted from Congress for that reason, because they were like weirdly like anti-Israel in an anti-Semitic way. So I don't think that the Democrats have like an anti-Semitism problem any more than the Republicans do. I mean, you can probably find one or two people on both sides of the aisle right now that you can point towards and say, there's some weird stuff. I mean, like look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Who thinks that George Soros and the Jewish space lasers started the California and Hawaiian wildfires, right? Like she thinks that Jews are like actively attacking the United States. So like if we want to talk about anti-Semitism in the parties, right?
But Marjorie Taylor supported Israel.
I'm pretty sure I've seen her say something about like not sending so much money to Israel.
I've seen her statements, but she supported Israel last night, and I read her tweet, and her tweet was, wait.
Well, really quick, let me just respond to one more thing.
She said, that's really quick. That's really quick. She said that, I have to find it. Wait. Before the debate. So that was about, there are many tweets. So
yeah, just as like a final thing, really quick.
I think that's a problem on that. And
but when it comes to Biden and Harris,
do not retweet this video. What?
In regards to Biden and Harris, while you're fighting that tweet, right? The Biden administration and the like Kamala, they've said like, yeah, they might have said don't, right? But who is the party that is like saying, hey, listen, if you guys attack Israel, we're going to attack you guys too. If we're going to defend our allies, if you guys do anything that is like over the line, right? But what we've been doing right now is just basically crisis management. We don't want there to be, and I don't think Republicans want there to be a wider war in the Middle East, right? So what we're doing over there is we're shooting down the missiles that the Houthis are launching. We're shooting down the missiles that Iran is launching, right? Without getting our soldiers involved in some kind of ground invasion, without directly striking Iran, because we don't want more tensions to flare up. And I think that unless Iran starts like going absolutely ham on Israel in a way that they're not able to defend themselves, and we have to step in and be the you know, the big bad tough police officer that says, "Hey guys, you guys need to cut it out." I don't think we're really at that point quite yet. We're approaching that, but like short of kinetic strikes on Iran, what would you have the Biden and Harris administration do?
But why they released $6 billion black money for Iran? Like,
Wasn't that like in 2021 or 2022? And it
no,
was money.
I think it was December 2022.
Yeah, and wasn't that money already Iran's, and it was part of like
It
an
was
agreement?
Iran money, I think, but US has blocked that money. But
Right, but
it was the
we
US
had some sort
decision
of
to
deal
give
to
that money
let
to
people out
Iran
of
or
jail,
not.
right?
What?
It was like in a negotiation. They didn't just say, "Oh, you know what? We're being really mean to the Iranians. We should just give them $6 billion of their money back." I think it was more we released their funds in exchange for prisoners, right?
Yeah, but
Oh wait, hold on. People are
that
saying
six
that no
billion
money was
dollar, like,
released.
you know how much is Iranian military budget per year?
Iran's
Yes.
probably not too much, but because they probably don't have too much money to spend on
Yes,
anything.
$10 billion. $10 billion. So that $6 billion has helped Iran really good, and they've sent those money to Gaza, and Hamas sent many rockets to Israel, even Hezbollah. But now that's Netanyahu's beast mode, and many people are condemning Netanyahu, and they say, yeah, he's the evil, and that's a big problem in the Democratic Party, because the Republican Party, those anti-Semites, they know if they're gonna be an anti-Semite, so it's gonna be from the Christian side. But in the Democratic Party, even those extreme Muslims, they are joining the Democratic Party and represent themselves as someone who are fighting for the human rights, but supporting a fake country, a fake country that doesn't really exist. So that doesn't mean you're supporting something good and something that's called human rights. So, and even Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, 8 months ago, he condemned Netanyahu and said, no, we have to have a two-state solution after 7 consecutive times that Palestine rejected the two-state solution. And now he's signing rockets for Ukraine, but he's a Jewish. And why he condemned Netanyahu? And that's a serious question about this conflict.
The reason that people are criticizing Netanyahu, well, hold on, really quick. The reason people are condemning Netanyahu is because Netanyahu is doing condemnable things. Even people in Israel are like, the public sentiment against Netanyahu is huge. And it's not because, like all the people in Israel are also anti-Semitic. I think that would be a really like brave position to take, right? The reason that people are mad at Netanyahu is because he's not doing anything to bring the sausages. I just did the Keir Starmer thing, or whatever his name is. The hostages home. Number one, it doesn't seem like there ever was a plan to get those hostages home, right? Number two, they don't have an end goal. They've never stated what their end goal is going to be. And all of the actions that Netanyahu is taking are not de-escalatory. There is no operational like goal at the end of this. It's just like this broad statement of destroy Hamas and take away Hezbollah's ability to strike into Israel, right? But we don't know what that means, right?
Before October 7th, that was Netanyahu's goal, and he became too much authority in that time. So
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't understand.
After the October 7th,
wait,
the Netanyahu goal was to get rid of all of those terrorists, like the Houthis, the Hezbollah, and the Hamas. So
no, that's not true, because the Houthis weren't even involved on October 7th. They didn't get involved until like September
not on
or
October
like
7th.
After
October 7th. Like He's
yeah.
attacked Israel after October 7th.
Yeah, but like if you just keep on
October
saying,
10th.
if like your initial goal is, okay, we're going to destroy Hamas, and then you go through and you start like bombing the fuck out of Gaza. And let me be clear, I'm more pro-Israel than I am like pro-Palestine, right?
Yes,
But
I know you are pro-Israel,
yeah,
and that's why I'm talking to you.
but like
And that's why I
here's the
trust
thing, like
you and talking to you.
you can be pro-Israel and still condemn or criticize the fuck out of Netanyahu because he's not doing anything to help Israel. If anything, he's hurting Israel on the world stage. He's destroying Israel's reputation. He's destroying their standing with so many of their like newly gained allies, right? Like they're making Netanyahu and the Likud government is making Israel's standing in the world way significantly worse than it ever was pre-October 7th, right? They don't have any like specific war aims. They don't have any end goal. And it seems like at this point, because of the like negative sentiment that Israelis have towards Netanyahu and his government, it feels like, and this may not be the case, but it feels like at this point they're continuing the conflict and not looking for an end goal because it's politically advantageous to stay in power until they can figure out some way out of the political mess that they've created.
Like most of the countries in 2023, they don't like Israel that time. But now they're supporting Israel. Why? Because Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. So now Israel wants to solve that problem fundamentally. And where's the fundamental? Exactly, Iran. The Iranian government funded Hamas, funded Houthis, funded Hezbollah, funded Laiva Fatimian group in Syria, and
yeah, of course.
Hashab in Iraq. So they're funding those countries, like 5 countries. I can say 4 because I don't recognize Palestine as a country, but but I say Iran destroyed 5 lands, and now Hamas became more popular. And did you see last night's videos? I can send you something that Palestinian people were happy when Iran sent rockets to Israel. That was really shocking.
Why is that shocking at all?
Like
I don't agree with
after
him.
that catastrophe. Like I've spoken to Israel, like he was not an Israeli, but he studied about Israel in his university exception, and now he told me like 1 month ago, polls in March and April this year shows that Hamas is the most popular group in Palestine, with the 70%, 72% in Gaza and 81% in the West Bank. I think 67% Gaza and 81% West Bank, but in West Bank was more than Gaza, and that's really
I think that's
strange.
really I think it's crazy. I think that the Palestinians need a
It's why I'm
leader that
crazy.
will
They're still supporting Hamas.
they need a leader that's going to go in
many
there and is
cringe
going to actually,
journalists.
fight for peace and like make some kind of deal that doesn't involve beheading as many Israelis as possible. Obviously, that's what the Palestinians need. But like, it's not surprising that at this current moment they're dancing in the streets and saying, "Yay, Iran is helping us out," because they feel like they're getting, brutalized. And it's hard to say that they're not getting brutalized. They are getting like bombed into the Stone Age. But like again, I don't know what the opinions of the Palestinians who are dancing in the streets that Iran is bombing Israel. I don't know why that reflects on the Democrats whatsoever. Like the Democrats, the Biden-Harris administration has been pushing for there to be a ceasefire so that Israel doesn't continue to like shoot itself in the dick in front of the entire world stage over and over and over, full auto with a Glock 19, just continually shooting itself in the dick, making itself look worse and worse, saying increasingly like like dehumanizing things about Palestinians, like whether or not they're true or whether or not they're not true, it doesn't really matter. right? What it does is it makes it harder for Israel to secure its own
Yeah.
borders in the future, right? And that's kind of the reason why a lot of Democrats who are pro-Israel are like, yo, this needs to stop. You guys need to like chill the out at
Yeah.
this point. You
It
guys are
needs to stop. But for example, Iran's greatest general called the president at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. and he told the president that
you're
we've
talking about
sent
the
our
United
rockets.
States or of Israel?
I meant to Israel. Like
Okay.
one of the greatest generals in Iran called the president of Iran at 3 a.m. and he said, "Yeah, we've sent those rockets to Israel, and most of them were successful." So the president is nothing in Iran, and everything is the supreme leader. So
Of course.
now the U.S. government should hold a deal with the Iranian supreme leader and Israel. Like, not Israel and Hamas, because Hamas is just a terrorist group from Iran. And even Hezbollah. The only government that can hold a ceasefire is Iran. And Harris didn't do anything, or Biden, or other, or like Secretary of Foreign Affairs. They didn't do anything about it. And that's a problem. You know why? Because I think if Kamala Harris put all of her support for Israel, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Cory Bush, Ilhan Omar, and Bowman, and other those pro-Palestine guys, they will criticize Kamala Harris and they will take back their support for Kamala Harris. And that's the problem. So
Wait, who's
Bernie
taking back
Sanders?
their support? Sorry.
Yeah, taking back their support.
Who?
Like those pro-Palestinian progressives, like AOC, like Bernie Sanders,
but
like
there's
Jamal Bowman. If Kamala Harris put all of her support for Israel, like, I think you've watched the debate, yes?
The vice presidential one last night?
No. The presidential debate.
Yes, I did watch that one.
Yes. And from up also, one of the Harris's statements was terrible. She said, we have to rebuild Gaza with U.S. citizens' tax money, or you have to force Iran to pay their blood cash for Gaza to rebuild the land that they have destroyed.
Yeah,
So Kamala
that's
Harris
a
said,
good thing. That's
we-
something that you should do first off, right? Because at the end of the
the
day,
U.S. government shouldn't rebuild Gaza.
if
The U.S.
if
government should
we're
use
allies
Iranian
of
blood
Israel,
money to rebuild Gaza.
well, I mean, we definitely have the ability to do that, because that $6 million thing that you brought up earlier, it looks like literally none of that was ever spent, and it got refrozen the second that, like, none of it was ever accessed, and it got refrozen before Iran could access it again. So all of that money could only be used on humanitarian stuff. So, like, you know, if there's like starving people in Iran, they can get more food using that money, but it couldn't be used for anything else. None of it ever was accessed, and it was refrozen. Although whatever the mechanism for that is doesn't seem to be clear, but it's not available to them anymore. They never accessed any of it, right? And it was for a prisoner transfer. So
Yes.
the Biden administration, Kamala Harris, never gave them like $6 billion to help fund their $10 billion a year military. That never happened, right?
Yeah, but like they can use $6 million on another thing and
No, they can't, because
spend
this money is frozen.
Like they can control their budget and they can spend those $6 billion that Biden-Harris administration released from their block money and other things, and
But they
use
can't use
another
it. I'm
$6
reading it
billion
right
for-
now. I'm reading it right now. They're not able to access that money. It got refrozen.
Oh, okay. So that's
So John Kirby, spokesman for the National Security Council, said in October that Iran hadn't accessed any of the money. Someone else said Not a penny of this money has been spent, and these funds will not go anywhere anytime soon, Paley said.
Okay, so that's okay. But another statement that I've spoken about was about rebuilding the Gaza. So
Yeah, tell me what's the
who should
problem with
rebuild the
that?
Gaza? Who should rebuild the Gaza? The U.S. government or the Iranian government?
I think that every interested party should have some hand in rebuilding Gaza. I think the United States is oh yes, 100%, and this is why, right?
No, what?
If
No,
if
why
you're trying,
100%? Like the losers should pay for that land that they've destroyed.
there
For
is not
example,
going to be a
after the
winner or
World
a
War One,
loser
who
in this.
paid for those lands? Who paid? Like Germany paid a huge amount of money to the winners of the war, and now Iran has to pay that huge amount of money to
That is a
Gaza, to
completely
Syria, to
different
Iraq, and to
situation, my guy. You can't take a like total war situation where it takes going to the enemy nation's capital and sieging it and killing the leadership until they're completely and utterly like destroyed as a country, occupying that country, and then signing a peace treaty in that situation is going to be way different than any kind of situation where there's going to be like 40 or 50 different militant groups that are all through different shell companies and different ways of getting money to these like smaller little militias all over the Middle East that are not state affiliated directly, right? Like trying to figure, so like trying to get them to sign some agreement where they have to rebuild Gaza, it's just not going to happen. Something like that's not going to be like, it's never going to happen. It's not because like the Biden administration is weak or America is weak. It's because how the are you going to get them to do that when they still, I'm pretty sure they keep, kind of hush hush, like we know what militias are funded by Iran because America has the CIA and we can keep track of these things. But I don't think that they have like an official relationship outside of with Hezbollah, which they're like very closely allied with.
Yeah, there are many Mossad agents that they are living in Iran and they are investigating the government. So that's why they've successfully killed Ismail Haniyeh.
Yeah. So like what I'm trying to get at is like every interested party should be taking part in rebuilding Gaza. Why? Because we want to instill some amount of goodwill. Like, hey, Israel just bombed the fuck out of you. The United States is their ally. Israel and the United States are going to pitch in to rebuild Gaza, right? While you guys decide on whatever your future action is going to be, right? You guys need to get some leadership that is willing to work with the rest of the Western world to, find some kind of either two-state solution or something that can be worked out, right? But like without some show of good faith from our side, it's going to perpetuate into infinity, right? To where like the only option at that point would be to genocide the fucking Palestinians, because you're just like, okay, yeah, well, we just bombed you into oblivion. I know that you guys have a bunch of rubble over there, but we're also not going to let in any more shipments of concrete because you guys might rebuild some tunnels. We're not going to let you guys have any steel because you might use that to make rockets. We're not going to let you have this, that, or the other, and basically restrict it to where they are literally just living in a giant rubble pile with no means of rebuilding. Yeah, Israel and the United States and every interested party should have some hand in rebuilding Gaza with stipulations, obviously, right? If you're going to have Hamas, we're going to stop.
Israel has left the Gaza in 2005, and
they did that in the worst way possible. That was a bad move.
Singapore, like Alan Dershowitz said, like Alan Dershowitz is a long life Democrat, so I think you do believe.
Wait, I thought that he was Trump's lawyer.
Statement. Yeah, he's a lawyer, and he said, like during his Israel-Palestine debates, he said the Gaza Strip had the potential to become Singapore, but
of course
they didn't. The Iranian government sent many militias to the Gaza Strip, and they've conquered the Gaza Strip. Like after the occupation in 2006, they won the election. And after
they won the
2006,
election, and then they killed all the rest of the opposing parties And then they didn't allow any more elections afterwards.
Yeah,
They
and
presented
that election
themselves
was rigged. Like that
well,
election was
I don't,
rigged, but
even if it
but
was, even if it
those
wasn't rigged,
Palestinians, they call it fair and square. I don't know why, but
well,
those
probably
Palestinians
because
are
that's what they're
calling that
being
fair and
told,
square.
because that's the only information that they're allowed to see, right? That's like authoritarian
Correct.
country, like
That's
101.
a authoritarian country without any free elections, and they've
Yeah,
done
now like
only one
90%
election,
of
and
those
they
dudes are blown to smithereens where you can't even identify their bodies because they've been blown up so bad. So like at this
yeah,
point,
and they are
now
using
we are
human
hitting a
shields, and they
hard
say
reset. Yeah.
yeah, and they're using human shields because
Yeah.
they
Welcome.
are fucking
I think
cowards.
they're
They're
yeah,
fucking cowards, and they're
they're
using human
disgusting
shields
fucking
because they want to
terrorists.
say, no, you're hitting those children, you're hitting those women. But the women and children are men's monopoly in Gaza Strip, if you know about those traditions.
Yeah, I agree. It's
Women and
really fucked
children
up.
are
But
men's
again, like
monopoly. And
if we're gonna
many of those,
criticize, like if the entire conversation is about like what is like the best path forward, right? Then like
like, it's
we
about
can look at the
what's the
two
best
options that we're
solution about what?
what we have in front of us in terms of like what's going on in the United States is we have two options. We have one party that is very vocally supportive of Israel, but also critical of Netanyahu because of the complete lack of like specific war aims that he has, right? Which is a totally legitimate criticism to have of Netanyahu, and that's the Democrat line. Of course, there are some crazy people. Some of those crazy people have been voted out of office, right? But like that's what the Democrats' line on this is. What is the Republican line on this? Nobody knows, because Donald Trump says that all of his foreign policy, it's all top secret. He's not going to tell anyone what his foreign policy is going to be. Nobody knows what his policy on Ukraine is. Nobody knows what his policy on Israel is, because these are incredibly complicated issues that the Democrats actually seem to have some grasp on what their vision for the future is going to be, whereas the Trump administration is just like, well, you'll definitely see once we get in office what we're going to do, but I can't tell you that up front. Like, why would we ever choose, right? Like, if we're going to criticize the Democrats, okay, that's fine. I'm fine with criticizing the Democrats.
I didn't say Trump's administration was a good one.
Right.
Trump's
like
administration was trash. Like, what's trash? But I think in this situation, I think Trump is a better choice for only one reason.
Based off of what?
Like in foreign policy, not other policies. Like, I want to say about the foreign policy, because Trump's administration, like the Republicans, have shifted from neocons to more
isolationist
libertarian,
freaks.
and
they are absolutely not libertarian. They are authoritarianism.
Like, not that not like authoritarian, but even mainly libertarian people
They're
on that side.
Absolutely not libertarian on the MAGA side. Absolutely not.
How they are not libertarian? Like, Vivek is a libertarian.
He is an authoritarian.
No, he's a conservative libertarian. Like,
no,
he's not that
they're not. When you look at the things that they talk about, they want to have criminal immunity for all of the MAGA people, but they want to go after, like, with like righteous fury, anybody that stands against them. You can just look at any like right-wing commentator that is supportive of Vivek Ramaswamy. You can listen to Vivek Ramaswamy's statements himself. They're totally fine with people on their side breaking the law, doing abhorrent like illegal shit constantly, right? But then because the Democrats are rightfully investigating the criminal things that some of these MAGA people have done, they're like, oh, well, we're just going to criminally prosecute whatever we can
January
find.
6th, yes.
Well, that's one of the many things, yeah.
Like, yeah, I think you're only talking about the January 6th, but they are not, like, for example.
No, I mean, there's a ton of right-wing conservatives that are completely like bought and paid for by Russia. Like, there's multiple things. Rand Paul, I would say, is closer to a libertarian than like literally any MAGA person.
He's a libertarian. Like, he's working with like the Mises Institute, like the most libertarian institute, and the Libertarian Party, and
yeah,
his
Rand
father,
Paul, I would agree
all of them are,
yeah,
like, he's allied with all of them, and I think like Vivek, like, I think commentators like Don Benigo or
I'm sorry, I don't know.
like we can say Charles Kirk or
Charlie
those
Kirk is
commentators
one
like
of
that.
those authoritarian freaks that
Yeah,
wants to
authoritarian. Yes,
they like to
I said
hold
those
on
guys are
to.
authoritarian, but
Yeah,
the economic guys like Wiebeck, like I can say Ben Shapiro or other commentators like Tim Kast, like Tim Pool.
Tim
He's
Pool
a
is an
libertarian. You can
no, absolute Tim Pool
not
out
Tim
of
Pool
the list.
libertarian.
Absolutely not. He is like he had on his show a segment where he was talking with Laura Loomer where they were calling for the death penalty for Democrats for all of the legal trouble the Republicans have gotten themselves into. You realize that,
Where
right?
and when? Because I've seen
Gas,
a
find me
debate
the link
against.
of Laura Loomer saying that like they should bring back the death penalty and on Tim Pool's show, please.
Okay, I'll find it.
Well,
So,
someone in chat's finding it real
but
quick.
I've seen a debate like between Tim Pool and Andrew Wilson. Like Andrew Wilson was conservative and Tim Pool was libertarian, and those guys are against taxation, and they say taxation is theft or something like that. So
Well, they
I
don't
think those
believe
guys are
that. They don't
conservative
believe that
libertarian. I
because
think
when you look at the people that they're supporting, they're deficit spending out the wazoo. They cut taxes and then they increase federal spending, which is the definition of
increasing federal spending on what?
on everything. Donald Trump led the biggest deficit budget in U.S. history, I think. Okay, real quick, you're on your phone, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I can't go to YouTube and search that video and
Okay, I'll just
watch it.
read the quote to you, and I'll link you the clip here. But Tim Pool says there should be a list of Democrats who need to go to jail, 100%. And then Laura Loomer says not just jail, they should get the death penalty. So I'll go
So
ahead and
Loomer said that, but Tim Pool didn't
yeah, and then
accept.
he had her on like 2 weeks later where they defend it. And Gas, if you can find me the follow-up clip where they like sit there and they talk about how, well, the death penalty's been in the United States for a long time. I'm not saying that we should be killing Democrats, but if you committed treason in the way that these Democrats have, which they have no proof of any Democrats committing treason, right? That they should get the death penalty. Treason to them means they're going after Donald Trump for actual criminal shit that he has done. That's what treason to them is. They have a cult of personality around Donald Trump, where anything that goes against Donald Trump must be met with the strongest force possible. It is like, I'm sorry, as someone who has literally read fascist literature, right? I've read the foundational text on fascism by not Benito Mussolini, by Giovanni Gentile, right? Like, the Trump movement is as close to fascism as you're going to get in the United States.
But fascism is about corporate economy, not about the free market.
They don't believe in the free market because they're trying to.
They
They're
do
trying.
believe in the free
No,
market.
absolutely not. Because they're trying to. Trump is talking about putting a 20% tariff on everything entering the United States. He's talking about isolationism and making everything that we want here in the United States.
So
And subsidizing heavily through the government for those industries to be built
because
up.
you have
So if
only
that's
4
not
years.
corporate government, cooperation, I don't know what is.
You say they don't believe in a free market, but I say he has only 4 years, no more. And I think, like, I do believe in free market. I'm a libertarian myself. I don't want to say Trump is a god or he's a savior or something like that. No, no. I just want to say Trump wants to put tariffs on other things that
A blanket
are
20% tariff,
importing
yes.
into the United States. Why? I think because the problem is the value of US dollar. Like Trump said, we will take out many sanctions of Iran 3 weeks ago or a month ago, I think. It was 3 weeks ago, sorry, it was 3 weeks ago. And why he said that? Because the reason was the Iranian government is dealing with Chinese yuan, and now they want to talk to Iran to deal with US dollar, not with yuan, because in the south So they have a problem with Russia. The Triple Islands, those three strategic islands in the Persian Gulf, and another channel in the northwest, and that means if that channel created by Russia, they don't have any borders with Armenia. And so that's why Trump said we will take out sanctions to motivate Iran to deal with US dollar.
You
And
realize that
that
Trump is
means
the reason that Iran isn't able to deal with the US dollar as easily, right? Like, we had a deal in place called the Iran nuclear deal, where like
Iran,
tons of
Trump wants
countries all
to
got together to like make sure that Iran didn't get nuclear weapons, and we had all these like
no, like
economic deals in
Trump wants
place.
to push
And then Trump
Iran
went in
to
there and he
deal
said,
with
we're going
US
to
dollar,
unilaterally
not with
leave this.
UN.
Wait, say it again.
I said Trump wants to push the Iran government to sell their barrels with the US dollar, not with Chinese currency or
Sure, that
yeah.
he might say that, and one of the things that we could have been like having that been done for a long time, but Donald Trump was
So
the one
they
that
are
pulled us
selling,
out.
like the
Donald
Iranian
Trump is the
government
one
is
that put
selling.
us in this situation with Iran, where they're even more isolated, where they're like driven closer to Russia and China. Why? Because Trump pulled us out unilaterally from the Iran nuclear deal, which he's now talking about. Like, he's saying that we need to do this, that, and the other with Iran. All of these things were part of, guess what? The Iran nuclear deal, right? He was the one that pulled us out of that in like the first couple of months of his presidency, because he wanted to be tough on Iran. But now we want to like talk about like, oh, well, we should be using diplomacy. Yeah, we should have been using diplomacy the entire time. Donald Trump pulled us out of that.
Yeah, but IRGC was the problem. Like the
Yeah, of
IRGC,
course the IRGC is a problem. Do you want to
IRGC
solve
did
that
many
with?
bad things, and Donald Trump said that that's a worst deal that I've ever done. And Donald Trump gave those Iranians 1 year and 4 months. So during, I think it was May 2018, he exit nuclear deal.
Okay.
Yeah, so he gave the Iranian regime 1 year and 4 months, and that's been 16 months. And that regime had 16 months to prove to America that they can do the deal. But the IRGC just did many terrorist attacks, and Trump said that.
That wasn't what the Iran nuclear deal was there to set up so that they didn't get nuclear weapons. The other stuff
Yes,
could have,
and
because of this,
IRGC did many bad things, and they didn't.
that wasn't part of the deal
And
though.
even the Iranian regime and the IRGC didn't give enough information to the agency, to the nuclear
The
agency.
nuclear agency had the ability to go in there themselves under the Iran nuclear deal, to go in and inspect it
Yeah,
themselves. When Trump left that, of course they're not going to give them the information, and they don't have the backing of the United States anymore. So everybody pulled out.
but the problem was that they were misinformating those documents. So
How do you
they
miss
put
it? How do
many
you
wrong
give
informations into the
misinformation when someone
documents.
can go there themselves and see if they have
So they
weapons
can go there
grade?
themselves, but the Iranian regime might not show all of those nuclear resources to
Well, if they don't show
the
all of the nuclear
agency.
resources, then they're
They
not holding up.
didn't. That after the Trump's administration, many things has exposed. Like I remember 2017, the agency had a big problem with Iran because the Iranian government misinformated those documents, and that was a big problem for the agency. And they warned them several times, and now, no. And after 1 year, so Trump left that deal, and the Iranian regime became more aggressive. And after Biden became the president, they became more aggressive too. Because I remember the Iranian regime was happy when Biden got elected. So even even they criticized Trump, and they said, yeah, Biden is very good and Trump is very bad for us. And after 2 days, they turned on Biden. So
Who
so they
did?
hate
Sorry.
Trump, and they just want Democrat to came into the office and uh, just do their deals more easily. So during the Obama administration, that was the biggest mistake.
Then, if
And
it was a big mistake, then why is Trump now talking about doing basically the exact same thing now?
why Trump is talking about doing the exact thing now? Because the Iranian government, because the Russian government betrayed the Iranian government. Like the Armenia border is an important border for Iran. Why? Because all of those imports and exports to Europe and from Europe are coming from the Armenia border, and now Russia wants to create a channel, wants to build a channel that blocks Iran have a to have a mutual border with Armenia. And even Russia said those tribal those tribal islands belongs to the UAE, and that's why Trump wants to tell Iran that, look, the Russian government is betraying you, and we want to make new deals, and so you can
Can you show me where Donald
get
Trump
rid
said
of
literally
Russia.
any of this? Or is
What?
this you? Is this like something that you yourself are trying to read into Trump's statements, or did Trump say literally any of this? Because this
Trump
sounds.
didn't literally. Trump literally said that we will make new deal, but when he said that after Russia, the Russian government statement on the channel. So they knew that channel will harm Iran, and they can't import anything from Europe because all of those imports are controlling by Turkey and Azerbaijan, and that's a big problem for Iran
I'll
because
look into this because I haven't heard anything about this specifically. None of this
yes,
means anything if Donald Trump hasn't said any of this.
he he hasn't said any of those things about that channel, but he said about the New Deal a day, or sorry, 3 days after the news about the channel. So they are not stupid. They know Russia will create a
If they're
channel
not stupid, then why didn't they say any of this?
because they don't want to show the Russian government about it. Because if they say that, the Russian government
If you were
won't
able to
do the
read this,
ceasefire
hold on,
with
really quick.
Ukraine.
Let me ask you a question. If you were able to like suss all of this out based off of the temporal, closeness of Russia saying one thing and then Trump coming in saying this, don't you think that the Russians figured that out? Like, or do you think that the Russians are literally like the orcs that people say that they are, who literally don't have any understanding and they're just like going through the motions, like raging out and going berserker on Ukraine? Do you think that the Russians might have also figured that out, or do you think that you have insight into this, into Trump's mind that the Russians don't?
Like
I'll
the
look
Russian
more.
government.
I'll look more into this specific situation. I haven't heard anything about this, which is surprising given the fact that I've listened to like the majority of the stuff that I listen to regarding politics is international relations. So like I'll look into this, right? But I have a
Yeah.
feeling that when I look into this, it's not going to have anything to do with what Trump said.
So it's not obvious when
Yeah,
Trump.
everything with Trump is not obvious because that guy doesn't say
So
fucking
that's
anything
not
of
obvious because
substance.
if Trump become too obvious, Russia or Iran, they'll not support their ceasefire. So they he wants to keep that secret, and the Russian government says in itself, yeah, Donald J. Trump will give us a good deal, and they don't know anything about it because FSB is too weak now, and they're as weak as so.
Okay,
Now
so you are saying
it's a
that you
good
have some
it's a
sort
good
of special
circumstances
insight.
for Donald
For
J. Trump to keep
really
that
quick,
secret.
I just need you to say, yes, you do think that you have some sort of special insight into Trump's mind that the Russians aren't able to suss out, given the exact same amount of, or no, actually, you probably have significantly less information than the FSB, let's be honest. For some reason, with less information, you're able to like decipher the like Trump's enigmatic brain in a way that the FSB. Can you just say yes to that? Because that's what you just said in way more words.
Repeat again your last sentence.
So what you're saying is that you have some kind of special insight into Trump's brain and into Trump's policies that the FSB does not have, despite them being literally the intelligence agency of Russia. You somehow have some information that they don't have that would give you insight into Trump's decision making that they don't have.
So they can't read the Trump's mind. So
But
Trump
you
see
can.
that, but that's too obvious when Trump said, because Trump said that, because Trump
If it's
said we want
obvious,
to
then
make
why
new
isn't
deal with
Russia
Iran.
figuring it out? That's what I'm
Yeah,
asking you.
Russia will figure it out, but Russia is not.
Then what's the point of not
that much
telling
sure.
anybody what his foreign policy is?
Yeah,
if Russia can figure it out and you can
but
figure it
Russia
out.
Russia is sure about it, but Russia don't do anything because the most important thing for them is ceasefire with Ukraine. So they don't say anything about it, and they want to wait until January 20th and see their new administration and how can they deal with it. So
Sorry, can you repeat
they
that?
know
I
Donald J.
couldn't
Trump
understand
is
you.
exactly talking about that channel, but they don't do anything because if they say something about the channel and say, yeah, Donald J. Trump, he wants to make a new deal with Iran because we want to create the channel for Azerbaijan and the Turkey. So that means Trump wants to push Iran and take it from us, and Iran will not be one of our allies. So that's a big problem for Russia. But Russia don't want to say that because but the Russian government doesn't want to say that because that's a major problem for them if they say that, and they want to be careful.
Okay, well,
In next
I'm going to have to look
5
into
days.
this situation. Like, literally, like 3 minutes ago, you said that the FSB probably doesn't have the ability to know what Trump is going to do. And now you're saying that they do.
Not exactly, but they know they're talking about the
I-
channel, but Trump
I
hasn't
just don't
shown
know
his
enough about this
policy.
situation specifically to comment
Trump
much
hasn't
further on it.
specifically shown his policies, and Russia knew that Trump is talking about that channel in Iran, but they don't know what Trump's gonna do about the channel
Yeah, it
and
doesn't seem
how
like
Trump.
anybody knows what they're going to do, what he's going to do. But
Yeah,
I
because
just
Trump
kind of
hasn't
want to
shown
move
his
on from
policies.
this like one topic that I don't know anything about that I'm gonna have to look into after this conversation, right? Like,
Yeah.
we can
Like, I
reconvene
only
on
want
that.
to talk
But
about Israel and those conflicts
yeah.
about.
But
Yeah.
like, just like moving it back to Israel, right? Again, the Democrats seem to have some kind of vision that they're willing to tell everyone what their vision is of what should happen, what their policies are going to be, what their stances are, right? And Donald Trump isn't doing that. I don't know if we can criticize the Biden administration or Kamala Harris for statements that they've said when all their statements are pretty much like exactly what we ought to be doing. We ought to be defending Israel. We ought to be pushing Israel to stop shooting itself with every single action that they do, making themselves look worse and worse on the world stage, putting themselves in a position to get even more missiles coming at them from Iran, right? Like at some point, the conflict has to start settling down a little bit, right? At some point, they have to have a goal for what the end goal of the military action is going to be, right? They haven't really stated what that is, right? So this is just like up in the air, and the Democrats are pushing them to have that end goal out in the open and then hold them to it. Is that a bad thing? Is that anti-Semitic? Like you were saying, the Democrats are like coming in here.
No, but I
Okay,
think
then how
Democrats
does that
should
make the Democrats
kick those
anti-Semitic?
kick like those people like Sanders out. But Kamala Harris needs their support, and that's why Kamala Harris is shown herself a two-sided person. But
Well,
she's
the
with
Republicans
Israel.
need to have all of the crazy Groypers and all of the crazy Andrew Wilsons of the world that not to seem to give either A, not give a or B, actively hate Israel, right? The far left and the far right are joining arms right now. Like that crazy Syrian girl Twitter account is retweeting Nick Fuentes and saying, man, everyone was so mean to him, but he actually has a point here when he's talking about like the Jews controlling everything. Like the far left and the far right are in lockstep. This isn't a Democrat problem. This is an
Yeah, they
anti-liberal
say that
problem.
far
And
left
there's
is a
way more
problem. Far left is a
illiberals.
major problem. They say Jews are controlling everything and they putting
That's what the
themselves into
far right has been saying for years, my guy.
yeah, far right for years, but a far right, not like, but we can say center right authoritarianism because fascism is not about free market and that's center, but center right,
Fascism
but
is about whatever
authoritarian.
makes the state stronger. If they can do some free trade to make the state stronger, then they'll
So
do
more
some free
training.
trade. What?
I said with more with government with more training, but that doesn't mean we have
With
to
more,
have
sorry,
free
what's that word
market.
you're saying? With more what?
Training like tranny. So sorry, like I didn't pronounce it that good, but I said it means the authority.
You don't think that the Republicans want to have like a executive that has way more authority than the Democrats do?
No, that's like the Republicans wants more authority, but I think the MAGA movement is shifting to libertarianism. Like I've
But
spoken to
again,
many
I've
anarcho-capitalists.
said like
Like the MAGA supporters that they are around me are mostly libertarians,
get me
not
one of these
fascists.
MAGA supporters. I will ask them 8, 9, 10 questions, and every single one of them, they will pick the authoritarian option. I can describe fascism to a MAGA person, and they will immediately say, oh yeah, absolutely. As long as I don't say the
For
word
example,
fascism, if I were to say, do you think that there should be
how
like
about Peter Schiff?
hold on really quick. If I were to say this to a MAGA person, do you want a government instead of the kind of government that we have right now? Do you think that the executive should have way more power and authority to pass legislation and to dictate legislation to be passed when the Congress and the Senate won't pass things? Do you think that the executive should be enforcing economic policy? Do you think that the United States should be limiting all of its engagements with foreign nations to the point where we are able to be self-sustaining here at home completely? And if someone stands against us, they have the power to unilaterally, pull the kill switch and brutalize whatever enemy comes against us. They will absolutely say yes. And now that might not be like one-to-one with fascism, but that's enough of the points of fascism where like we're looking at an authoritarian executive that is as close to fascism as you can get without going out there Benito Mussolini style with your chin in the air. Like, I don't know. Like, I can describe fascism in a way that like every single MAGA person would like suck
they are thinking
Trump's
they are
cock
fascists.
to get
Like,
it.
and I know many of them. Like, they have fascism thoughts, but
They say that they want the government out of their lives and all this stuff. They say that all these libertarian things, but if you tell them, hey, do you think that, books should be banned out of certain libraries or out of schools or out of society because of the
what should be banned?
like more books, because of the morality
What
that it
kind
might
of
impart?
books? Like pornography for children under
No,
age
not
of
just
18.
well, yeah,
I think
no
yes,
one's going to
but
disagree with that one. But when it's stuff that's not actually pornography, when it's just stuff that might be considered quote unquote woke, when it's talking about like racism, yeah, that's stuff that has been banned in some like like MAGA governments, like the state governments that are headed by a MAGA governor, yeah, they've banned like anti-racism books. Nothing that has anything to do with sex, nothing that has to do with gender, just stuff that has to do with racism because it's woke. Okay, like therefore the authoritarian aspects that are in line with their morals, the authoritarian aspects that are in line with the things that they want to get done, but they just don't want the government to like with them. But as long as it's with the right kind of people, as long as it's attacking liberal ideas, as long as it's attacking wokeism, whatever the they decide wokeism means today, they're totally for it. They're authoritarian. They're not libertarian. Trump is not a libertarian. If Trump was a libertarian, he would have cut spending and cut taxes. But he didn't do that. He cut taxes and he drove our deficit out, not just through the roof, into the stratosphere. Like there's nothing libertarian about anything that Donald Trump did while he was in office. There's like literally not a single thing. If you like any principled libertarian would like shoot themselves in the head with a shotgun, a 12 gauge, at the thought of being associated with someone like Donald Trump pre-2016.
Now, like libertarians, like I've seen many libertarians, they are supporting Trump.
Yeah, because they're not actually libertarians, because they don't have any actual principles, because they don't want to be associated.
Like they're verified libertarians.
They can say that they're I can say that I'm a communist all I want, but I believe in free markets. I believe in, freedom of association. I believe in, freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of the press. None of those things really line up really good with socialism. And when you look at all these libertarians that are like, oh yeah, I think that the executive branch of the United States should have way more power. What libertarian ideal does that line up with? When you ask a libertarian like about Donald Trump's, when you talk about a libertarian or Donald Trump to a libertarian, what libertarian is going to say, yeah, you know what, I think that Donald Trump's economy was like amazing, because it wasn't under a libertarian lens. It was a like spend way more above your means than you possibly could, have more government control over, how much government spending is going into business and into industry, have more government control over trade. Like every single one of these things is antithetical to libertarianism. And now people are going to say that Donald Trump is way more libertarian than Kamala Harris. That's crazy to me. It's like actually lunatics, like styled speaking.
How about like funding taxes? Like they say, for example, many of them, they say we have to tax more and more and more. And the Kamala Harris's economic plan is taxes up to 44%. But Trump tax plan is
tax up to 44% on unrealized gains of capital gains, right? I don't, number one, that's going to have to go through Congress. I don't even think that that's like going to happen. I know that feels like a cop out.
That's her thoughts.
That yes, so and I think that's and I'm not going to sit here and say
you think Donald Trump has many statements that they are, for example, not true. Like is less.
All of the worst things that Donald Trump is talking about doing is stuff that he can do himself as the executive, like putting a 20% tariff on all goods entering the United States. Yeah, that's something that the executive has the power to do by himself without the power of Congress. Kamala Harris's plan that I just talked about, that stupid tax, and mind you, this is only one of her economic policies. Trump's entire economic policy seems to be like talking about tariffs. He doesn't really talk about literally anything else. And tariffs are just a 20% tax on every single item in the United States, because every single item in the United States has, along the supply chain, some aspect of it that was made in another country. So it's just 20% tax on every single item coming into the United States, on every single item that you could possibly buy.
Well, like the items that are coming to the United States, but like that's just economic policy for 4 years. And
yeah, that's disastrous economic policy.
That's not a disaster to tariffs. So you're
a blanket 20% tax on literally,
and the working capital will go higher than the U.S.'s current working capital.
When you say working capital, what do you mean? You mean like people's pay, or
no? When the working capital is when more companies will invest in the U.S. and the
why would more companies invest in the United States when every single
If
item that comes into
if
the United
Trump
States is going,
cut the taxes down to 15%, yes, more corporates will
but they would have
invest
to
in the
also
United
contend with
States.
that 20% tax on literally every import that they would need to produce anything. We can't produce literally every single thing that we need inside of the United States without prices going through the roof.
Yes, but I think if companies are investing in the United States, so they don't need to pay taxes for. So sorry, I meant tariffs for
No, they
those
would because it's an
products.
import.
Yes, so they're not
Anything.
importing. So they have invested into the U.S.
Okay, hold on. I'm maybe there's some sort of disconnect here. You realize that in order to produce something, right, that is not capable of being made inside of the United States, if there's a component of that that needs to be imported, they have to pay that tariff. Right? You recognize that?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would companies come to the United States, into the United States, and expand their operations here when they are going to have to pay extra taxes, 20% more on literally every single thing that they need to, like, every single component of whatever they're making that can't be produced in the United States?
Because, for example, those 20% tariffs, for example, Kamala Harris's economic plan, like raise the corporate taxes to 35%, I think.
Which
Yes.
is, I'm pretty sure that the current plan was to raise it to pre-Trump levels, which was like in like the 40s. Kamala Harris is going in between and putting it like what, 38% or some shit like that.
Yeah, 38%. Yeah. So 38%. So Trump,
And what is it
he
right
said,
now?
look. He said to those companies that, for example, you are paying only 15% taxes, but you have to pay tariffs when you want to import those
That's
things
literally
into the
every
US.
single item. It's everything. You realize that, right?
Every single item.
Every single item. Yes, every single item, from raw materials to fully made components. Yes. He's talking about a 20% blanket import tariff that if you want to send something to the United States to be sold in the United States, to be manufactured and refined in the United States, you have to pay an additional 20%. How is that libertarian for the government to inject themselves into the market like that?
Like, that's nationalist economy, I think. Yes. That's not
It would
libertarian,
be
but
a
cutting taxes
nationalistic
is
isolationist.
libertarian.
Yes, it would be absolute. Wait, no, it's not libertarian. It's the opposite of libertarian. It's a tax on literally every single item.
Tax on every single item, but like the normal people will not pay more taxes than now. For example,
They're
they
going to be
want to
paying.
remove
They're
like
going to be
taxes
paying 20% on
for
every
the
single
world gas or
item.
something like that.
The
So they
corporations have to.
to
Yes, that cost gets passed on to the consumer.
pay, and the government won't control those prices.
How? Hold on. Are you talking about price controls?
Like, can you see the Javier Mayeli's new government?
Yeah, the one
He
that's
didn't
like
control the
completely.
prices, and now, for example, the rent
Yeah, his
prices
economy is like
went
fucking
down.
crashing.
Not crashing. The rent prices, for example,
I
went
think
down.
like 50% of the people in his country are now in poverty.
50%, like
I just
50%
saw,
of those
I saw
people
this graph
went in
like
poverty,
2 days ago.
from the last year, like before
Argentina
January. Before
poverty
January,
rate.
the inflation was 400%, and inflation went higher and
Where's
higher and
the
higher, and now
where's
it
World Bank?
went down to 139%. I think. May I search Argentina inflation? I've searched that before. Argentina inflation rate. Javier Mayeli elected in December.
Yes, in
2000.
2016, 19% of people were food insecure. From 21 to 23, 36% are now food insecure in Argentina. Let's look at the next one. They are now, when was he elected? In 2021 or 2022?
Mayeli?
Yeah.
December 10th, 2023.
2023. Okay. So when he entered office, the poverty rate was at 40%. It is now at 52.9%.
So you said
This is
it's
the biggest jump.
52.9%. But you
This
say
is the
like you
biggest
can see the
jump.
inflation in December, like before Javier Mayeli took the office. So it was 211, and it went up to 292 in April, and it went down, and now it's 236.
Here, I'm
And
going to send this graph to you
the
really quick.
predictions and sorry, and the predictions are 200 and
What is the number that
I
you're
think
talking about? Sorry.
like the next year predictions about the inflation. I think the predictions are about 150% and next year, and that's the inflation in Argentina. So
I'm
so
looking
inflation
at their
rate,
I'm looking
like the predicted inflation rate in the 2025 is 60%. So now the inflation went up because of those
those policies that he had put in.
Keynesian economies, and now he removed all of them and he gave the control to the private property owners, not the government. The government shouldn't control the prices or control the economy or something like that. So
Wait, you were just
the
telling me that the
people,
government should be controlling the prices to account for the tariffs when it comes to Trump. You said that
the
like 2
government
minutes
should
ago.
control the tariffs only for 4 years. That's
That's
not
4 years of destroying our economy. And when I'm looking at
not
again, I just
destroying
sent
the
you a
economy
graph.
like that. That's
That would destroy our economy.
wait, like Javier Mayeli's policies went bad early this year. Okay, so the
Wait, say it
inflation was
again.
292%, and
Okay.
now inflation, like the prediction of next year, is only 59.6%. So that means
Congratulations. They've lowered inflation at the same time that literally everybody else in the entire world is lowering their inflation. They're lowering their inflation slower than everybody else in the entire world. The United States has gotten
no
its
faster.
inflation. No, because the United States has gotten its inflation under control already after the economic
I said
shock of
Argentina, and now
I'm
they want to control the inflation from 250. I mean, if Trump wants to control the inflation and for example have a constant inflation, so he has to put tariffs for I don't know 2 or 3 years, and after that more countries will deal with dollar, not with yuan and or euro. So they have to work with US dollar, because if they work with US dollar, the currency's value will go higher.
okay.
Like he's more involved in, I can't say Austrian, but I think he is more involved in like a bit of Chicago, because now I spoke with some economic graduates, like one of like some of them were PhD in economy, and they've told me that tariffs, like the Trump's tariffs, are pure terrible. Okay, but that's necessary for his administration. That's not a good economic plan.
It's not necessary for his administration. It's not necessary for our economy. It's not necessary for our foreign policy. It's not necessary for our domestic policy. It's not necessary for anything. It's just virtue signaling to everybody that wants like the America First thing, who know nothing about economics, who want to sit here and simp for Argentina's
How about
Milei,
this one?
who just shot his poverty rate from what in late 2023 it was at 40%. He shot it up almost 13% in less than a year.
You meant 2020?
No, I'm looking at the graph because in 2020 the poverty rate was just over 40%. He has a higher poverty rate than during COVID. I sent you the
He
picture
has
that I'm looking
like
at.
more, like he has more, like the Argentina has more poverty rate during COVID. You know
No,
why?
no.
Because
It is a higher poverty rate than COVID. COVID was like
I know damn COVID,
10%.
because during
Yeah.
COVID the inflation was 42%, and now the inflation, the average inflation is 250%. In August, inflation was 236%, and
And yet the
Next
poverty
year
rate was
predictions
still
is
significantly
59%,
lower.
and in 2026, the inflation will become 31%. I can send you the graph.
I mean, you can send me that graph. That's fine. But the problem is,
Yes,
look at
that,
like again, even
and
when
look at
the
Mises
inflation rate was
Institute.
higher, even when the inflation rate was higher before he was in office, the poverty rate was still lower than it is now. You can
Because
bring
that
you
was
can bring
end of
inflation down.
2023.
You can bring
Because that
inflation
was the end
down.
of 2023, and during 2024, like the first 4 months of 2024, inflation went
Okay,
higher, and
wait.
now inflation came
Okay,
lower because
maybe
the
I'm
government
understanding.
because
Let
government
me look.
don't because the government doesn't adjust the prices, and now the individuals they can say whatever they want. They can adjust the price, like they adjust their demanded prices, and like for the first 4 months that was very bad, and after that, so the inflation went lower, and we can
I
see
wish this
that
would give
now.
me by month instead of the year over year. But
Yeah, month by month. I have the link.
oh, you have a
Wait.
link for a month over month? Yeah, I don't know as much about
Yes,
this situation, but like, if you want to
but
argue
it's
for libertarian,
until August.
I
I don't have the September one, but
okay, gotcha. Well, hold on,
I
really
send you
quick.
another
Like,
link
this is like a
of
little bit
Mises
separate from
institution.
this is a little bit separate
Like
from the United States economy, right? But
yeah,
like,
but
this
I've
isn't
sent
even this doesn't even
thing.
like speak to anything that Trump was doing. So like, I don't know as much about
Yeah,
this, but
but I've sent another thing about Kamala Harris's economic plan, like
here.
the Mises Institute has wrote this, and I think that's a good information about Kamala Harris's economy. So the Mises Institute is a libertarian institute, I think. Is a liberal, like liberal to libertarian. Like most of them are libertarian, but in honor of Ludwig von Mises, one of the biggest liberal ideologues. So that's their institute. Can you see that?
I'm sorry. This is 1 second.
The Mises Institute Kamala Harris Economy Analyzed. This one.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Literally, the third paragraph is, of course, Democrats blame inflation on the war, the pandemic, and the science fantasy concept of supply chain disruptions. Do you recognize that supply chain disruptions can cause inflation? Or is that science fantasy?
Like the science fantasy, like they say the science fantasy about the
Concept
Green New
of
Deal. Yes,
no. They
they
say
say about
the
Green New Deal.
science fantasy concept of supply chain disruptions. They
So I
don't
think
believe that supply chain disruptions exist. Why the fuck would I read another sentence of this?
isn't that true? So you do believe that doesn't exist. So they don't
Wait,
believe
no.
that does
Supply chain
exist.
disruptions absolutely exist, and they can drive inflation because there's more money chasing fewer goods. That's the definition of inflation. More money chasing fewer goods. If the supply chain is disrupted, there are fewer goods coming to the United States, but there's still the same amount of money. Therefore, supply chain disruptions means that we have all this money that's in the system, and money isn't, or more goods are not coming into the United States for that money to chase. Therefore, inflation. It's literally like a supply-demand curve, basic Econ 101 that me as a in the internet who has only taken Econ 101 can recognize. They say Democrats blame inflation on the
like
war, the
like
pandemic, the war. When the oil and when Russia's economy got completely cut off from the rest of the world, and then there were a lot of money chasing fewer goods when it came to oil because Europe wasn't taking any more Russian oil. Do you recognize that more money chasing fewer goods causes inflation? It's the definition of inflation. Do you recognize that as a libertarian?
yeah.
All right. When it says the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, everything shut down, but we didn't get rid of all of the money, or like fewer goods were coming into the United States, fewer people were buying things in the United States, but there was still the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So do you recognize that all three of these things, when all three
and
of
the
these
Biden
things,
administration shut that down, but the Trump's administration led that to the states. So the Biden administration
Hold on,
said,
wait,
if you
when
don't
do you
shut that
think that the
down,
lockdowns
you'll be
happened?
fired.
When did the lockdowns happen?
Lockdowns happened first in 2020, and Trump said
First
states
or
has
only? First or only?
the only lockdowns, because that was
They
a
happened under
lockdown
which president?
They
happened under which
in
president?
two different periods.
They happened under which president?
Under Trump until January 2021, and after that it was another wave of COVID, like the worst one.
But were there lockdowns associated with that higher rate of COVID the next year?
It was a higher rate of COVID, like the
But
Delta
were there lockdowns?
COVID. May I search?
I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is no. There weren't additional lockdowns for the Delta wave. That's one reason why there was probably a bigger spike in the Delta COVID. 1 second, I gotta mute it real quick. Give me 2 seconds. You can Google something. Trump was the reason for the lockdowns. That's hilarious. Are you? That's not what I said at all. I said who was the president during the lockdowns. How are you going to blame
in 2021 caused more death?
Here, give me like 2 seconds. I'm going to deafen while you're reading that, and send me that link. All right, I just got to deafen for like 30 seconds.
And
oh my, how the fuck do I deafen? Okay, yeah, Trump was the president during the lockdowns. How are you going to blame the Biden administration for the lockdowns when the lockdowns happened under Trump? Trump has nothing to do with the lockdowns. What I'm pointing out is the fact that everybody's trying to blame the Biden administration for the lockdowns. He wasn't the president during the lockdowns. I asked them what the president was during the lockdowns. I didn't blame Biden. He's blaming Biden, which is why I'm saying, who is the president? All right, sorry about that. I was yelling at someone in chat.
Yeah, in 2021 was more than 2020. It was 460.
No, I know that there was a bigger spike of coronavirus. Did those correlate with more lockdowns?
The 2021 was more lockdowns than 2020.
That's not true.
By the
what you just said is wrong.
Because the federal government forced that to do more lockdowns.
The federal government can't force any state to do lockdowns, number one. Number two, there weren't additional lockdowns in 2021.
But Biden said, if you don't lock your state down, so we'll fire you.
That is not, you're conflating two different things, and one of them doesn't exist. All right. What you're talking about is the COVID vaccine, and he wasn't talking about we're going to shut you down to the states. They said that if you don't get vaccinated and you're like taking, I believe it's like federal money or something, or if you're a business of a certain size, then we will fine you. But that doesn't mean that we're going to shut you down. Right now, we can argue whether that or not that was a good plan. So that was a good thing.
Their decision to take vaccines or not. That shouldn't be mandatory.
Well, that's a completely different conversation. Do you think that the vaccine requirements caused inflation?
Like lockdowns cause inflation.
But
and
lockdowns
vaccines,
listen, again, I'm going to say it for the 4,000th time.
But they've spent a lot of money on vaccines, like Fauci's.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And guess what? That happened under Donald Trump.
That happened under but the vaccines made under Joe Biden's, made under Joe Biden's administration.
The vaccine was being produced under Donald Trump. It was being manufactured under Donald Trump. All of that.
It was August 2020. Yes, the Pfizer vaccine, but the Moderna, I think it was in February 2021. Wasn't it?
But all
the Pfizer was the first one.
I don't remember exactly when each one was released. The manufacturing for these things started under Donald Trump. The research for these things were funded by the Trump administration. Probably the only good thing that dumb ever did in his entire life. Okay. So again, can you explain to me, we were just talking about inflation. You brought up lockdowns. There were no lockdowns in 2021 under the Biden administration. Biden did not force any state to shut down. He doesn't have the power to do that. So can you explain to me how Biden's COVID policy caused inflation? There weren't any lockdowns. You can't bring up any lockdowns. The vaccine did not cause inflation. So please explain to me how Biden's policies around COVID caused inflation.
Because they have done a harder lockdown. So after that lockdown,
the lockdown was under Trump.
Yes, the lockdown was under Trump, but after the Trump administration. So the Biden just funded that money for like more fundings for vaccines and
Yeah, that was probably good. We probably want people to get vaccinated so that less people are getting sick from the COVID virus. Yeah.
so why government should like make vaccines? Why
Because
like
the free
those
market
private
wasn't accounting
companies
for it. The free market
make
wasn't
vaccine?
capable of taking care of it themselves. I'm not a libertarian, so I'm going to sit here and I'm going to take the statist position, okay? Because I love the government, all right? The government does have some responsibility to its citizens, right? And when there is an externality, such as a world-ending pandemic, not world-ending, but you know what I mean, like a massive pandemic comes through, and the free market isn't accounting for this because it's not the free market's responsibility to take care of the health.
I just disconnected for 10 seconds, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm saying is, like, I'm taking the statist position on this because I love the government. And when the government has a responsibility to its citizens that the free market cannot account for, such as, you know, externalities such as a global pandemic, the government does have a responsibility to step in and say, hey, we're going to help out our citizens because they pay us taxes. They pay us taxes so that we can defend them from foreign invaders, so that we can keep up our infrastructure here at home. And in the case of an emergency, the government can come in and take steps to mitigate that emergency. The COVID pandemic was a not just national emergency, a global emergency. If it wasn't a global emergency, then we would see like the United States freaking the fuck out and everybody else not giving a fuck. But China gave a fuck. Russia gave a fuck. Europe like collectively gave a fuck. I can't speak much more towards Africa because they probably don't have the government infrastructure to enforce anything to stop people from getting COVID. But like every country, every major country around the world recognized that COVID was a problem. The United States also recognized that COVID was a problem. We took appropriate measures, and the Biden administration, God bless goddamn Biden, the best president of my lifetime, came in, did enough government spending that was also matched with government cuts. When you look at things like the Inflation Reduction Act, right? When you look at something like the CHIPS Act, not only did they increase spending there, but they matched it with government spending cuts, which is something that the Trump administration literally never did. They just kept on deficit spending like a... The Biden administration got our inflation under control, our inflation rate under control, faster than almost any other individual country in the entire world.
Didn't Biden's administration cause inflation?
No. The pandemic and the war.
Trump's administration, the inflation was one.
I didn't say that it was Trump's. I didn't say it was Trump's fault either. The inflation happened because of a million different factors that all played together at the worst possible moment. They all converged. There was the pandemic. There was the record deficit spending under Trump. There was a lot of spending under Biden to try and mitigate the damage that the pandemic caused on us. There was the global supply chain disruptions that happened over the entire world, right? Every single country in the entire world was experiencing.
Pay for that? Like that's the Midas Institute's problem with that. Is why the government should pay for COVID by
because the free market wasn't accounting for it, and it was killing a lot of people, and we didn't know how bad it was, especially at the very beginning, because it was a brand new virus. We didn't know what it was going to do to people, both in the short term and in the long term. All we knew was that there were a lot of people
like the Fauci, and that was a wrong move.
Why?
From the Biden administration to trust them more and more.
Who was Anthony Fauci hired to look at COVID under?
Who is like the Secretary of Health in the U.S.? I think it was
Donald Trump, yes. And Donald Trump defended him all the way through 2020 until he was ousted in 2021. He said he's a good guy. He's doing a great job.
Like I don't say he was true and that. I mean, Trump is. I do agree, but I don't accept every single policy that he has done. So I say that policy was a bad one.
Yeah, it was probably, that's crazy because that's literally the only good policy, the only good thing that Donald Trump did in office that was more than like some minor piece of legislation that helped like 2 or 3 colleges. Like this is the only thing on a national level that Donald Trump did that was good, which was Operation Warp Speed, which was like failing, but attempting to try and mitigate some of the damage of COVID while also simultaneously pretending like COVID didn't exist, or pretending like injecting disinfectant into your bloodstream was going to help, or putting a UV light bulb into your esophagus to cook you from the inside out was going to kill all the viruses. Yeah, like Donald Trump did at least one good thing, and it's the one thing that all of the Republicans hate him for, which was all of the COVID stuff. Although, you know what, the Republicans actually
Yeah, all the
they
COVID
don't
stuff.
hate
Like,
Trump for that because
who
they
hates
just think,
Trump? Like,
just
who
like
hates
you.
Trump before the COVID? Like, well,
Hey,
who?
you're right.
The
You're right because
Austrian
people
economists.
like
The
you.
Austrian
No.
economists. The
All the
Austrian school of
Republicans, they just
economists. Like,
pretend like
all
Trump
of them
didn't do it.
hated Trump after the COVID
And
because
yet all of these
uh,
Austrian economists are now sitting there sucking Trump's cock because he's not a Democrat, even though the Democrats have a plan for the economy that actually increases government revenue, that actually can like
yes,
either maintain
and
taxes at the
that's
same
bad. And
rate
that's
or
bad.
lower
The
them.
government's revenue shouldn't increase, and that's really bad because we will give more authority to the government if you increase the government's revenue, like the former Argentina
You know, every single time
president.
people say that, oh no, well, if we increase taxes, if we give the government more power, then they're going to use that power, and that's a bad thing. Like they've said this every single time a Democrat has been elected, and every single time things have been like either better than they were before. If you look at if you look at Donald Trump, like you look at his economy, it was Obama's economy that he rescued from the brink of economic collapse from the Bush administration, right? Trump comes into office, he rides the coattails of the Obama administration. Now, I'm not going to say that Donald Trump didn't do nothing. Donald Trump definitely did do something for the economy. He definitely ran our economy super hot for 4 years until COVID came around, and then he completely mismanaged the out of that, not for lack of
During
trying,
the February
I guess.
2020, the U.S. economy was on the strongest mode.
Yeah, I'm saying that he maintained the ship. He kept it sailing at the same rate that it was increasing under the Obama administration. We were posted all-time highs throughout the Obama administration.
Obama administration, but taxes under Obama, like the corporate taxes under Obama administration, was 35% up to 35%.
Yeah, and we did a lot of government spending under Obama, and we had
government spending.
yeah.
So,
and then guess what happens?
Right.
Donald Trump comes in and he starts printing off of money to pay for all the government spending that he wants to do, which is the exact opposite that you as a libertarian should ever be okay with. He not only did he cut the taxes, he then spent even more money. He printed off more money than Obama did during his entire 8-year presidency. He outspent Obama's 8-year presidency in 4 years. And you want to invite this guy back into the Oval Office, and you want to invite this guy back into the Oval Office to put 20% tariffs on every single item that's entering the United States with no other economic policy that's posted whatsoever, except for, I guess we'll try and lower taxes even more. We'll definitely...
Before the Obama's second term, you said, no, Obama will continue his 35%, like his 35% governmental tax, and the corporation tax will be still 35%, and that's really bad. But I think for that 4 years was necessarily good. And I think this kind of economic plan for these 4 years is a good economic plan. But after that 4 years, so
we should just tank our fucking economy, make every single item in the United States 20% more expensive.
Like the last Trump's administration, there was no tariffs and the economy wasn't bad. So
wait, hold the fuck up. Repeat what you just said. Say that again.
I meant the tariffs.
Did you just say that under Donald Trump, there were no tariffs?
I didn't say Trump wouldn't put tariffs in his next administration. I said Trump will put tariffs in his next administration, and the administration after Trump's administration, I think will be a Republican
So what you're saying
one.
is we should just do a move, trash our economy
by making...
what I'm saying is we should do what you're saying is we can handle mode economy for 4 years, and then someone else can come in and clean it up. Like, again, every single item, every single component, every raw material that comes into the United States will be 20% more expensive. That will be then passed on to the consumer. That will necessarily our economy. It will hurt every single person. It is an automatic 20% tax on literally every single item a U.S. citizen buys.
Yes, you say yes. For example, the prices will go up by 20%, but Donald J. Trump wants to cut taxes down to 15%, and like corporate taxes now are 28%, and Donald J. Trump will cut that to 15%, like
Oh, and that will suddenly like
13% less
even it
than
out
now,
for your
and that
like for
means
me going to the grocery store and buying soup that's 20% more expensive. Oh yeah, man. You know what? I'm so happy
oh,
that there's a
like many
15%
soups are
corporate
produced in the
tax.
U.S. So they're not produced in China, like the most things that they are produced in other countries, for example, is like clothing
Every
or
single thing that is
every single
produced
thing
in
that
the
came
world, every
that
single thing
comes
that is
from
produced
another
in the
country.
world,
So,
the
for
only
example,
country
soup
that
or
doesn't have
vegetable, they are from the
imports,
U.S.
really quick, the only country that I can think of off the top of my head that that produces every single thing that it uses inside of its own borders, except for the food aid, because everyone's so destitute that people are starving to death, is North Korea. Every other country on the face of the planet has things that they produce in their own country, but every single other thing goes through supply chains that go all over the world. Fruit that is produced in the United States is sent overseas to be packed, and then it uses plastic that is produced in Vietnam, and then it's packed together with syrup in Argentina or some shit, and then it's shipped back to the United States. And you, as a libertarian, as someone who pretends to know about economics, should know that the comparative advantage that each country has over its imports and exports and what it can produce inside of its country, what it's cheaper to use imported goods for, like, this is one of the things that has created the most prosperity in the entire world in all of world history. And now we want to try and throw that out because it would be like fine for 4 years to just like completely our import market. Do you recognize that every single item that happens in the entire world at some point is produced in another nation? And this goes for every single country on the face of the earth, minus maybe North Korea.
Yes, but I said.
Is
So you
there
say
anything that I
the
said there
prices
that
will
was
go up
wrong?
by 20%. Like you said,
Is
that's
there
a bad
anything? Is
thing.
there anything
I
that
do
I said
agree
there
with
that
you.
was wrong?
Like that's a transitory policy. That's not.
Transitioning to what? More isolationism, which is supposed to be good for the
I didn't
United
say
States economy?
transition. I said transitory.
Oh, transitory. Sorry, I misunderstood you. Well, hold on. Transitory to what? An economy where we don't have
Transitory to
tariffs?
that's transitory to um, higher US dollar value.
Because no one will want to trade with us? Because it's
I
all
said
inside of the United States? Is that what you're saying? Because all of the dollars
no. I
aren't
said
flowing
like
around the world where we have
other
control
countries
over.
have to deal with the US dollar. For example,
Yeah, that's a
Trump
good
said
thing.
if those foreign investments and the companies if they want to, for example, send their products to our country, they have to pay a 100% tariff if they want to deal with euro or yuan. So they have to pay tariffs for their products if they want to deal it with euro or yuan, and after that they will deal it and they will sell it by the US dollar. So the US dollar value will go higher, and the US dollar value is a problem. It's a major problem because
Yeah, and we've brought
if
inflation down.
If Donald J. Trump doesn't control this fall of the U.S. dollar, so the Chinese currency will be the first currency in next 10 years, and that's a big problem. So uh, I say that's a transitory policy, and if Donald Trump do that policy for his second administration, after his second administration, so the U.S. currency value will go higher.
Really
And
quick, I just
after
want you
that,
to know, I just looked up the value of the US dollar, and it is stabilized back to the level that it was in early 2020, before
yeah,
the
back to
pandemic
the
really
level
hurt.
that it was, for example, 20 years ago, because
No,
the
in
Chinese,
2020,
like,
in 2020, I'm looking at
not
a
like,
map. I'm looking at the valuation compared to the euro. All right. It is at the same level that it was in 2020, give or take like a hundredth or two of a percent.
wait to send that to you. Wait.
Just Google
Um,
US dollar value. and then hit the 5-year mark.
Wait, I'll send you the link.
I'm not going to be able to stream for too much longer, and this conversation's gone for so long. Well, I don't know. Hey guys, I don't know if we're going to be able to watch the debate today. Okay, I know it's not so simple, but listen. I'm going to mute myself for a second. Listen, I need to get out of this conversation. I started at 11. It's now 1. I have to stop streaming by 3, and we're not going to get to watch the debate today. Also, hi everyone. I see some names in chat that I haven't seen in a couple of days or in a while because I haven't been streaming as much. But it's nice to see you, Alley Cats and Testy and Neighbor Guy. No, do gold or Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think
Oh, gross.
found it. The U.S. currency values since 2000. Yeah, U.S. inflation calculator.
Do you recognize that the rate of inflation has gone down?
Like we can compare, for example, the inflation between these periods and
really quick. This is just a very simple. This is a
$2,000
very simple question. Do you recognize that the Biden administration has gotten inflation down to target levels?
Yeah, but that was too late.
It was faster than any other developed nation in the entire world.
Yeah, it was faster than any other nation in the entire world, but it was too late to move that to the 2.5% inflation. So
the inflation was bad. The Biden administration dealt with that faster than any other country in the entire world. Yes.
The U.S. inflation, the highest rate of U.S. inflation was 9.1% in June 2022, and other European countries had 10% inflation, like Germany. They had 10% inflation.
What
and
happened
now,
right before June of 2022, by the way?
So the inflation went higher.
Well, what happened that caused inflation to start spiking in June of 2022?
The June of 2022. So
what happened?
War
Like
in
a couple.
Ukraine?
Yeah. There we go. Like I said earlier, like we
The
had
war
a
in
bunch of
Ukraine
problems
was
with.
The war in Ukraine wasn't in June. It was in March. And in March
Yeah,
2022,
and
the inflation was
inflation is a
8.5.
lagging indicator, right?
Yes, wait, the inflation was 8.5 in February 2022. Yeah, the inflation was 7.5. So 1% moved from February to March. Okay,
So it
that was
increased the
inflation because of
inflation.
Ukraine. But after that, the February. No, February was 7.9 and March was 8.5. So 0.6. And after that, we had another 0.6.
Yep, because we kept on adding additional restrictions on Russian oil.
Sorry. Like the inflation went lower from March to April. April was 8.3, and after April, in June it was 9.1. July was. Sorry.
I mean,
July
we can
was
list off
8.5,
every
and
single
after that,
month.
8.3.
We can list off every single month of inflation. The question is, when we see a global inflationary pressure that affected every single country on the entire earth, meaning that it wasn't the fault of any one administration per se, right? Because every single country on the face of the earth is having this problem. It's kind of like global warming. You can't blame one country or another because we all contributed to the problem. Every single country has this problem. The United States, with inflation, we got our inflationary pressures down faster than other industrialized nations.
The OPEC caused the global warming more than any other.
Well, I don't want to move to global warming. I want to stick on inflation. So if the United States, everybody is all experiencing inflation to varying degrees. The United States had bad inflation. We got it under control faster than one, any of our enemies, two, faster than any of our allies, and three, faster than any third world country that barely has an economy to their name. We got it under control faster, right?
Because the U.S. government isn't into the battle, isn't in the battle scene,
it has nothing to do. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with different policies, both domestically and
different
internationally.
Policies like helping, for example, helping Ukraine that huge amount of money. So I think
it wasn't money. We sent them fucking surplus military assets.
It was military assets, but it was more
I
than
don't know
100
how
billion.
I don't know how a bunch of F-16s that have been sitting on the lot for the past 10 years were going to help us deflate our inflation rate. Can you explain to me how artillery shells that were going to be exploded in the next month were going to reduce our inflationary rate?
I'm against her. You said how those F-16s like can solve the inflation. You said something like that.
Yeah, because you're saying that because we were sending so much money to Ukraine, all of that money, with the exception of like I think like 10% of it was like monetary aid, right? The rest of it has been food and literal physical equipment. So can you tell me how the food and the equipment that we sent to Ukraine has caused an inflationary pressure on the United States?
Because it costs $100 billion.
This was money that was already spent decades, over the past couple of decades.
Yeah, like in
This is stuff
Afghanistan
that
or
was
something,
this
or
stuff
in
was
Iraq. Yeah.
stockpile, stuff that was either going to be decommissioned or exploded, and we sent it over there, saving us money so that we didn't have to dismantle or explode them ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
these
you can
physical
say that.
items,
Yeah, you can
these
say that.
physical
Maybe
items
I
did
agree
not,
with you.
yeah, these physical items, the majority, the overwhelming majority, like 90% at least of the aid that we have sent to Ukraine has been physical items that were already paid for, probably up to or over a decade ago, that has nothing to do with our inflation now. We could send another $250 billion today of military equipment to Ukraine, and it would not impact our inflation rate whatsoever. Do you agree with that?
And sorry, I have to say something. I think I have to go now.
That's totally fine. But we can pick this up another
Yeah,
time.
I'm sorry if I bothered you today.
No, you're
It was
fine.
a
You're fine.
long conversation.
It's a long
to take.
conversation, and I like having heated conversations. I'm not like mad at you. I'm totally fine with having another conversation. This is like our second time talking.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, like I get heated, but
Freedom
I'm
of
fine.
speech
Yeah,
works every time, man.
let's go. All right. Well, I'll catch you later.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
And have a good day, sir.
Yeah, you too.